All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to DevForge, the podcast that seeks to embolden your knowledge of game development and potentially help you forge your own path into the industry. That's right. I came up with the tagline. You guys said I needed a tagline. Well, I'm your host, Nick Callow, not Neck Callow, and I'm a freelance artist and tabletop RPG designer based out of Chicago, Illinois. On Twitch, I go by the name Level Dead. You guys already know this who are watching live on Twitch. And you can find me live most nights around 11:30 p.m. Central, working on art or diving into like some of my other favorite games. You know, currently I'm playing World of Warcraft Classic, so those types of things. We're gonna this is a rough go of the first show. We had a vote on what the name would be, and the name that won by one vote was DevForge. The one that was in second place was Game Dev Delve, but I was thinking about it. It's a little bit hard to say if you say it constantly. Game Dev Delve, Game Dev Delve, Game Dev Delve, you know, that kind of thing. But currently, I am working on a tabletop role-playing game entitled Might of the Mountain, if you guys don't already know. I know some of you already do. And I hope to share updates with you guys as I continue development. So before we start, I have to let you know the following. This podcast is filmed in front of a live studio audience of zombies, ghouls, goblins, ogres, and confused humans that have taken a wrong turn while heading to the bathroom, which was for sure down the other hallway. And we hope you enjoy the show. So I'm going to go into topic one, which is who am I and what got me into game development. So I've already introduced myself. I am Nick Callow, so I'm a freelance artist and game developer based in Chicago. But originally, when I first started everything, it was a long time ago, several centuries ago, which also means several years ago. When I was in high school, I originally drew like crappy art that I thought would make people laugh. I had a bunch of random doodles in my sketchbooks, doodles on my sketchbooks as well, and then people usually said, "Oh, that's pretty good artwork." But you know, I didn't know better at the time. My artwork was not good. It was just developing, just like many other artists out there. But while I was in an art class, a teacher mentioned to me that I could potentially have a career in art, and at that time, like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, I've never even thought about having any sort of career related to art. I've always thought it was a myth. You know, currently right now, I'm making money off of freelance artwork. I'm not necessarily in a full-time job doing art, but I have had several interviews related to it or related to development in general. So I know that there is a path to get on that. And that's what we're here for at DevForge, is to help forge that path. I myself am on a path that I'm forging, and hopefully you guys are on a path as well, or are thinking about potentially being on a path. You may hear random bumping and craziness in the background. That's Kristen doing her sister's makeup. There's also airplanes going over because we're in Chicago. But yeah, so after that teacher told me I could potentially have a career in art, I began researching colleges that focused on illustration, because I thought that I kind of knew that I wanted to do illustration to begin with, because I would see these vast battlescapes that were drawn in like my Warhammer books that I had at the time, or that were in the game manuals that I had for the PC. Mainly I played PC games at the time. Or PlayStation games, like original PlayStation games. And I was like, man, this artwork is amazing. I didn't really know the artist at that time, but I just knew that artwork was cool. So I was looking up illustration at a lot of colleges. And then I realized it was a lot of traditional painting, and I was not all about traditional painting at that time. I liked pencil work better. I saw, at the time, I didn't know, but it was John Howe's pencil work. Also, there was a lot of pencil work in the Warhammer books, or the one Warhammer book I had was basically the Chaos. It was basically the Chaos book that went over the different miniature painting techniques and things like that for miniatures. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but I just liked the artwork from it, so that's why I had the book. But so while researching, I found a couple schools downtown in Chicago. One of them was named Columbia College. The other one was named the International Academy of Design and Technology. It was a very long name, but they shortened it down to IADT Chicago. But I found that Columbia actually had taught concept art. I was actually looking online when I was looking for illustration. I found Columbia, and they had talked about concept art and game development. So they had different like trees that basically went down the specific paths where you could learn, just concept art or just character art. And those, would specialize you at that school. At the time, I was playing a lot of Blizzard games like World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft a little bit, mainly with my friends, like LANing and stuff like that. And then I was playing Warcraft 3 and the custom modes that were in Warcraft 3. So I think I've talked about it on my stream where it was more of like role-playing-esque versions of it where you had to play as different roles, like a mailman or a mafia leader and things like that, and you would make gold in the game. So it was getting closer to what World of Warcraft was at the time, so that's most likely why I played that. But I knew that I was extremely passionate about how alluring like Blizzard's games were. So why, I played them all the time, why it was so fun to just kind of dive into the new things that they were releasing. It just seemed like they were having fun with it, so I was having fun with it, And a lot of other people were as well. My mom actually went with me to tour the two colleges at the time, IADT and Columbia that we mentioned before. We decided that IADT was a better choice for me because it was more so private. It was quieter at the school. With Columbia, you had to travel from building to building, and at the time, I could say I was pretty fearful of traveling building to building downtown. I didn't normally spend time down there. Now, looking back on it, I know for a fact I should have chosen Columbia College because, unfortunately, IADT did close down because they lied about placement rates. So many other colleges basically at that time did lie about placement rates, saying they placed like 98% of their college students into career jobs. And that's why a lot of people took the, that information to heart and joined the school. I myself was one of those included. I was excited that they had a career service like section that was going to help me get a job in the industry because I knew at the time how hard it was, but I didn't know. I guess I was kind of starry-eyed. I didn't really actually know how difficult it would be to get a position in game design or illustration or concept art or anything like that in general. We just had gone into the school and everyone, in the classes was like, oh my God, I have these great game ideas. I've played these games, but, they didn't really know what it took. And I didn't really know what it took at the time to put together those games, how many people it took, or how much time it took for one person to do that. And I think at that time there wasn't a lot of indie developers that were really building games, or maybe there was just the start of like the indie scene of people building games. So but let's roll back to good times. So ultimately, I got into game development because there was because of the plethora of games that I was playing at the time. Mainly, I can attribute most of my passion to World of Warcraft because that is where I spent most of my hours that I was awake. I basically spent in World of Warcraft. I never told anyone that I played World of Warcraft. I was kind of a closeted nerd. However, eventually over time, I have lifted that veil, so to speak, and I tell everybody that I play World of Warcraft. I tell everyone that I play MMOs. I'm listening intently. Awesome. Great to hear. I'm just kind of spewing words out there. I mean, I have a script that I'm going off of, so you may see me looking down every so often or majority of the time. Hopefully I'll get better over time, with reading all this stuff. So their team at the time was putting in so much passion into what they were making, and I definitely felt it through the game. And so I got sucked into, Azeroth, and I started developing my social skill sets actually through that. So I don't know if I told you guys this on stream. I probably have mentioned it thousands of times. But essentially, I sucked at talking to people. I was very quiet in grammar school. I was very quiet for the most part in high school. But then I started kind of blabbering on and on in college once I got into an area that I was more excited about. I was learning about game development, and I knew that after college that I was going to, or at the time I knew that after college I was going to get a job because I thought that, the career placement would help me, with their 98% placement rate, which we know is a lie at this point. I should have known better. But Yeah, I mean, I was very passionate about what I was doing. I was very excited because I was working alongside people who were also going into game development. And so I developed my skill set by playing games, my social skill set by playing games, where I would sit there and type up everything I was going to say beforehand, and then I could backspace it, and then I could type it all again and make myself seem, I guess, smarter or stronger or anything like that. I could be basically just making myself better than I am in real life, I guess, in living in a fantasy world. But that helped me build confidence to talk to people about different things. And then I eventually jumped into like voice servers, using Ventrilo and things like that to talk with people directly. And that helped me, break out of my shell. And now I can't stop talking. And, my wife, Kristen, hates me. She doesn't hate me, but basically she hates that I talk so much. I could just go on and on and on and on about a topic. And now I have to find myself in the middle of a sentence and like stop myself from going too far into it. Because before I wouldn't talk at all, but now I just keep talking, like it just keeps going, But overall, passion is what drives me. Those strong emotions you get like when you play a game or when you're designing a game and you just get down into the development of it and you're coming up with these new ideas, and that just moment of excitement that you get when you come up with a new idea and you want to try it is what keeps me going forward. And I know that I don't think there'll ever be a moment where I will be bored when a new idea pops into my head for like any sort of game. Even if it's just a small little piece of that game, I don't think I'll ever be bored of any idea. Even if I need to change my whole game or change the smallest parts of the game just to make it a better experience for the players, I just know that excites me. Overall, it excites me more than illustration, it excites me more than concept art, it excites me more than 3D, character rendering, animation, any of that stuff. The design portion is what excites me, and that's what got me into game development. So I'm kind of those ideas are resurfacing, or the reason as to why I went to school for it and why I got into game development is resurfacing, and it's helping me reform my direction, or reform that ingot or whatever we're going to be working on in the DevForge to basically hammer it into a weapon that can be used to pursue design for myself, at least. And so hopefully other people, can find out what they're passionate about, or maybe they're going through, the steps right now that I went through to find out what you may be passionate about. You might be passionate about something right now, but as you actually get deeper into it, you're going to find out if that's right for you or if it's not right for you. And the only way to find out is by, jumping into it and actually, doing something. So if you want to experience illustration, dive into illustration, try it. I have a lot of people in the Discord channel that are pursuing illustration. They want to be freelance artists, or they want to do, concept art for video games. And the only way that they're going to find out if they like it is just start doing concepts, start making up worlds of your own world building, and breaking those worlds down into, the characters, the environments, where the characters live, things like that. And then, drawing, painting those things up, studying the anatomy, studying environmental assets, and just nature in general. So same thing with design. If you want to design, start designing small games. Like myself, I'm designing a tabletop RPG. I know that I can handle it just by, organizing it and, processing through it by myself, and then I can produce the artwork for it because I've actually, had experience in illustration or 3D art and things like that. So basically, take what you can and do what you can. Essentially, you want to just stay within the realm of possibility early on. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew and make the next big MMO, because that's what most people do. Is they say, let's make the next biggest MMO. I want to be able to break down everything and do everything. I want to be able to play 60 different characters at the same time. And everyone's excited about that. But think minimum viable product, and I'll leave you off with that. Maybe do some research on what minimum viable product is. Maybe we can talk about it in a later, DevForge podcast. My best friend tried making a huge-ass 3D game by himself and realized how big a project it was and has quit many times. Yes, that's how it starts. You think, hey, I'm going to make this huge 3D game by myself. I can do it. I have all these great ideas. Let's do this. And they dive into it, and then they realize that you have to, like, even just making an individual asset can take weeks. Yes, illusions of grandeur, exactly. And in case you guys are wondering who I'm talking to, it is someone in Twitch chat named Treyarch Media Group. He hangs out in here. He also goes by Vexbang. Getting 10 ideas easy. Getting 1,000 ideas difficult. Getting ideas is easy. It's implementing them that's hard. Implementing them correctly. You can implement 1,000 ideas. You can implement 100 ideas. However, it may not be worth it. You might have we implemented this idea where the cape flies around when you move, but then that cape breaks the entire game, or that has no bearing on what makes a fun game. Just because the cape moves, that doesn't matter. Make the game fun before you have all these flashy things, these cool ideas. That's pretty much what got me into game development. Of course I could talk about it forever, but I broke it down into more of just it's passion. What drives me, and it's what built from my experience of trying illustration and moving through that. But to go into the game that I'm working on, so now we've been talking about biting off more than you could chew, and being able to pretty much digest what you're. We're talking about biting off. Making a game is not essentially eating food, but on your own note, you'd say you just like creating things, and games make others happy. Seems like an easy deal. Yeah, that's the big thing too. Is huge thing for me of why I'm making this game and why a lot of people make games is because we want to see people happy. We want to see our players excited, when they use an ability. We want to see our players excited when they just dive into a feature. Those types of things are what makes me want to keep making games. Is I just want to see people have fun playing something that I've made. Very self-rewarding, and they can keep playing and experiencing it. Yeah, exactly. They can experience it in multiple different ways as well, and each person is going to have a different experience with your game, and some may like it, some might not like it, and that's perfectly fine. It's just that you'll get a good group of people that will really enjoy, what it is. But yeah, this first episode is going to be pretty short, probably. I was planning for 30 minutes to an hour. We're coming up on 30 minutes, which is fine. And then, with any Q&A time, that could extend it a little bit. But so let's get into it. What is Might of the Mountain? So to break it down, as of right now, it's a tabletop role-playing game that has a heavy focus on professions, crafting, and a hint of RTS, real-time strategy for those who don't know, and city building. I want to feel like I'm part of a world that I can build for a long time. So something that Chris Metzen said in the Blizzard retrospectives video that I watch consistently constantly, is that they wanted to build a world, or he wanted to build a world like Azeroth that he could live in. I'm not quoting it exactly, but basically he wanted to build a world that he could live in. And that's the same thing for me. I want to build a world that I can live in. So my game, Might of the Mountain, is pretty much designed for myself, going against what most of the rules I was taught in school was to design for other people. But you can still design for yourself, but have a thought process that is also focused on other players' experiences. And so you yourself are a player as well. So you need to keep that in mind. There will be a niche or a group of people that will enjoy what you are putting together. You're not that unique, essentially. This is what I'm taking from other podcasts I've also listened to. There's another great podcast, if you guys have not heard of it. It is called Board Game Design Lab. I listen to it constantly, so I would definitely check that out on Spotify. But diving back into feeling like I'm part of a world that I can build for a long time, I want it to feel like my character can essentially mold that world, creating new experiences for any player that joins into the game. So if my character decides he wants to blow up a mountain with dynamite or something, I blew up that mountain. Now a new player comes in next week, and that mountain that was there before, that was, let's say it was etched by these elementals, or it was put together, it was like 30,000 feet tall, and I blew it up with dynamite because I felt like doing that. Now they came into the world, and the people, the villagers that live nearby, are now saying, oh, well, so-and-so blew up the mountain or the mountain exploded. Maybe they don't know actually what happened. But that ultimately has affected the entirety of the world. Or if certain factions in the world take over certain zones, like in Risk, that's going to change the story arc for each player. And I'm actually going to get into the current update that we have. So I'm currently working on a quick start and playtest guide so that I can give a free sample of the game to people, and it's like a free sample of the game rules, essentially. That will allow players and the game master to experience what the final game could be. It's not going to have access to all of the different races that are currently in the game. It's going to have access to a smaller portion of spells, a smaller portion of races, etc., so they can playtest. But that will actually allow me for more rapid playtests and also online playtests here on Twitch. So keep in mind, we will be running online playtests for Mind of the Mountain here on Twitch. Those of you who are part of the Patreon already, you will get first dibs essentially on playtesting spots. And what we'll do is I will create like groups of playtesters, so that way everyone can essentially get in, or most people can get in, depending on how many people want to play. But I'll organize it that way, so that way it's not the same players every single time, unless we don't have enough players and it's going to be the same people each time. My goal is to implement at least one Mind of the Mountain stream a week. I'm thinking it might be Mondays, because Monday, Mind of the Mountain, Monday Mind of the Mountain streams just kind of sounds good to me. But this will be the case while I'm working on my current freelance contract. For those of you who do not know, I am currently creating 36 miniatures for a tabletop game publisher. You can actually catch me live here on Twitch, www.twitch.tv/leveldead, to watch me sculpt any of those miniatures. I'm actually going to be sculpting maybe later tonight, not 100% sure. But usually I go live around 11:30 p.m. Central Time when I'm sculpting anything. So I've got several more that I need to do. I'm currently working on a suit of samurai armor, and I have to fix up a Viking masthead, so like a wooden Viking head of a ship. That is the update for Mind of the Mountain. Now we're going to go into Q&A time. Does anyone have any questions for me about, originally what we were talking about, of, why I got into game development, how I got into game development, or about Mind of the Mountain, the tabletop RPG that I'm currently working on, or questions maybe in regards to your own personal pursuit, or your own path that you're forging into game development. Or maybe you're not even in game development and you have questions about, what that might entail, what you can get into, what schools you can go to, those types of things. We can possibly help you out with that. For DevForge in the future is to get other game developers on stream, so that way we can talk about your games, we can talk about what makes you tick, and maybe we can bring you guys back for any updates in the future, those types of things. You can always feel free to prepare questions ahead of time, and I'll definitely take a look at those. You can also, maybe we can do a thing where you guys send in questions. That'd probably be better too. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, you can actually tag me at Twitter, or you can message me at Twitter at LevelDead. Basically go onto Twitter, tag me, or send me a message, and I will compile it for the next show. I think we're going to plan for DevForge to be on... as far as I'm aware, I'm off on Saturdays. I'm planning to do DevForge on Saturdays at 9 p.m. Central. However, based on work, I will have to potentially adjust that. But as of right now, Saturdays, 9 p.m. Central for DevForge. Oh, this will help me out a little bit. What materials can you gather, and how do you plan to make them interesting? What materials can you gather? Okay, let me go ahead and pull up my spreadsheet here, because I have a lot of different items. So I can give you kind of some examples of what materials I've come up with for gathering. But so some examples, I guess you could say, the materials is we have mining nodes. We currently have mining nodes, carpentry nodes, herbalism nodes, fishing nodes, and trapping nodes. I'm going to be adding more things in there as needed, but we have to play test with these nodes currently. So for like mining nodes, I have examples. I have copper, cassiterite, which is tin. We have iron, silver, gold, mithril, thorium. Then we have some more of the fantastical ones that I've come up with. We have frost iron, blood iron, spectrite, and dragon's flame. And frost iron, blood iron, spectrite, and dragon's flame are rarities of epic and legendary that we have. For carpentry nodes, we have things, simple things like cedar, pine, spruce, fir, hickory, oak, mahogany, maple, walnut. Then we have crazy ones that I've come up with. Anything from epic and above, I basically have come up with myself. So we have Gemfleck Weeper. It's called the Gemfleck Weeper. The bark glitters in the moonlight. We have the Wailing Oak. We have Claws of Aethstrast, Blessed Tree of Eredrith. So you can collect those types of things. Then we've got herbalism notes. We've got fruits, vegetables, healer's root, smuggler's berry, moonleaf, sunroot, marble lace, iron shrub, Stralnaran greens, tulip of the sages, thunderroot, hissing vine, Eldnaran shrub, rose of the watcher, Etherian night vine, Lavedell mushrooms, bush of Goldrin knowledge. We have luminescent fungi. We have Scorian seedling. There's so many different things that you can collect in this game, which is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to allow you for a lot of customization. But I can go deeper into the materials if you guys would like. But yeah, planning on making them interesting. It's just to plan to make them interesting, it would be more of like their implements into the crafting. So, if, for example, we have the frost flowers of Arthgiliath or the venom shroud leaves, those are going to have specific looks and feels to them, and like when you break them down, they're going to do different things, and they're going to apply different effects to your crafting, and that's how I'm going to make them interesting. It's just the descriptions of them and their effects that they have on the different professions, and how they're going to change or augment your different crafting abilities. All right, so what plans do you have for the creatures of the Mind of the Mountain specifically? Specifically, is there any big players that will influence the world or lore that will give players something to grab onto and offer to launch their own stories? So let me reread that. So we're going to break it down into, so what's the plans do I have, or what types of plans do I have for the creatures of Might of the Mountain? And welcome in, Andrew. How's it going? I do see you there. I'm just reading through some questions, and you guys are, feel free to bombard me with the questions. We're going to go through them, in the order that they come in. But plans I have for the creatures of Might of the Mountain. I do plan to create a bestiary and customized creatures. What I'm going to be doing before I do that is I'm going to create a simplified enemy creation system. So I will be taking, like, as just an example, you will be able to pick from a list of descriptors. So like, two-legged, bipedal, quadruped, those types of things, scales, fur, etc. And then you'll be able to roll on a health pool based on the level that you want this thing to be. You'll roll on the health pool, you'll roll on the damage, you'll roll on how many magic points it has or whatever abilities it has. You'll be able to roll on those things, and then you will roll for the different abilities it may have. So maybe we're going to create a ability list that can be called upon. But there are going to be some default creatures that I create that are going to just be in the world. That you'll have, basically information to direct yourself to in the book right away. But then there'll also be character generators, so creature generators, NPC generators, those types of things, because I myself have done that in my own game. I've had to generate NPCs on the fly. I've had to generate creatures on the fly. So we are going to be getting into that at some point. And then you're saying, are there any big players that will influence the world and lore that will give players something to grab onto and offer to launch their own stories? I mean, that question's a little bit confusing, but I think I can relate it to, like, there are factions within my world. So there's going to be a release after the game is launched. We launch a Kickstarter. There are plans in the future to essentially release what are called legendary quests. And those legendary quests will be a series of chain quests that will relate to one another. And one of them, it's called Wars of Torment, and that's going to introduce the faction wars in the game. There are factions all across the world that you can partner up with, and it's like a risk gameplay scenario, I guess, where you partner up with those factions to go to war, and then they take over different areas, and you mold the world based on that. I know you have had tech and steampunk-based profession, so I was wondering what you'd gather for that, since it's a fantasy-based type of game. Essentially, I'm going to be creating, harvesting nodes for the sci-fi portion of the game as well. So there's going to be elements there, but the sci-fi people will also be able to collect mining nodes or stoneworking nodes that can be implemented into the sci-fi world as well. So you're going to be able to pull from the fantasy nodes and bring those over to your sci-fi. Those metals are going to apply to your steampunk designs. The gemstones you get are going to apply to the steampunk stuff as well. Not necessarily steampunk. It's not really steampunk. It's more of just futuristic styled stuff. We'll get more into that once we dive further into the sci-fi thing. But yeah, you try. I'm trying to mirror or have both of the worlds be strong enough to where you can pull from each of those and use them across both. Is the wood just for crafting houses, cities, etc., or is it for other things? So it is for other things. So I have a list of professions. So as you can see here, we have professions. So alchemy, we have the profession components. So herbs, gems, ground materials like bone or dried ground materials like bone or dried flesh. Then, for example, like wood. So carpentry uses wood, metal, leather, cloth. Then we have enchanting, extraction. Let's see what other ones use wood. So fishing uses wood as well, to make different fishing poles, things like that. We have gem crafting. We have monster hunter, which uses dead creature components. Metal, gems, leather is used in smithing as well. We actually have to use wood in this too, so we're going to add that in. Metal, wood, gems, leather, cloth. So there's a bunch of different things that use them. So you can see here too, robomantics, which is the sci-fi profession. We have metal, gems, leather, cloth, gunpowder, herbs, wood, and alchemy items. So they're all across the board. So if you're harvesting these wood nodes that we have here, so these carpentry nodes, you can use them all across, the different professions. You haven't gotten that far yet? My bad. No, it's all good. I'm taking it in order of my game features. So we have to work on the hero affinity list. This essentially is going to be something that will kind of guide your character while they have nothing. When you don't have a class, when you don't have items, your hero affinities are what your character may be inclined to pursue. So my game starts off where you don't have classes, where you don't have anything pretty much for the most part, and then you pursue a path or pursue a class path that you'll eventually pick up, at level 2 or level 3, etc. So same materials, just different professions use them differently. So yeah, they use similar materials. Each profession does not have its own materials, so to speak. What did get you into game development? What got me into game development was my passion for Blizzard-esque games. So I played World of Warcraft. I played Warcraft 3. I played Diablo, and those games, the way they made me feel and the way I was able to actually customize. I actually played Warcraft 3 and Age of Mythology around the same time, and they had customization features where you can play around with the map editors. So I would do that, and I would have things fight. I would place a bunch of enemies down and have them fight each other, kind of how that YouTube channel is where he does that same thing. I got into those games. There was so much depth I felt at the time to those fantasy worlds and that, and I felt excited about living in those worlds. And so I was looking around. What I mentioned before was I originally wanted to do illustration. However, I found that there was a game development path at Columbia College downtown, and then I looked at a couple other schools, and I didn't realize that making games was an option. So then I went into that. I was like, it goes hand in hand. You can make artwork for games, and I play games all the time, and I'm excited about the game design of it, actually how to quest, what abilities I can use, and how they animate and everything. Basically the beginning to end to game development I'm excited about. So it's the immersion and passion, and you wanted to build on that. Mind the pun. Yeah, I would say so. It's a lot about the immersion and a lot about the passion. It's a lot about working with the people too. So the people who also work on games, I want to be alongside them and see them excited about the features they're putting in, and also have them see how excited I am to put that in. And I've talked about it on stream before. I personally want to be the person, and now I've figured it out. I want to be the person that is able to discuss the features with the players. I want to be up on stage or in front of people or interviewing or whatever and talking about these are the new features we're putting into our game, or these are the features we're changing because this is what we believe would be the best for our players. That's the type of thing I want to get into, and that's what excites me. It's just introducing things to players or improving things for players to make it extremely fun for them to play the games. That's why Might of the Mountain is very, very important to me. because I get to directly influence what the players are going to do. And so that's why I'm excited to get this playtest guide done as soon as possible, while working on freelance, of course. But I can get that game out to you guys to play for free, at least a condensed version of it, and then we can do some online playtests, and you guys can give me direct feedback, and we can, I can build the game and edit it, things like that. Because it's like, I don't want to make an option or mechanic that makes a player feel bad, or they made a bad choice. Yeah, and you're not going to be able to get everything. You're going to have stuff that still stays in there, and that's essentially your bugs in your games. And just do the best that you can, and over time we can always edit them. That's why you see there's first edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition, fifth edition of D&D. Because they have to change rules, and they have to make things more accessible for the player base and things like that. So what made you want to make Might of the Mountain specifically? Oh, so that's a good question. That's a really good question, actually. So I used to play. So I played D&D. I still do play D&D. But I played D&D, and what made me want to make Might of the Mountain specifically from that is, it's a long one. I like to write homebrew for D&D. So I don't like. Okay, so it's a little bit difficult to word this in the way where it doesn't make me sound like a dick. Basically, if I'm working as part of a development team and I was hired on, I will work on your game day and night. I will, bleed for that game. However, I like to write my own stories. I like to build my own worlds. So I play out movies in my head of what that world's going to be, and I essentially write it down onto paper or draw it. And for D&D, when I run games for people, I essentially I skimmed over the rules, and then I used the rest of my creativity to fill in the rest of it. Things that I didn't know the answer to, I would make up. I would essentially make up the rule. Then people would correct me and say, well, that's not the rule, Nick. This is the rule. And I would say, okay, well, I can go by the rule in D&D, or we can augment it to make it this way, to make it fun. Not that it's not fun in D&D, it's just that they're very strict and they're very specific. So I would alter it. And most of my players that I had, I've run multiple campaigns. Not extremely long campaigns. Most have gone for like several months at the max. But, adjusting those rules and that, people have had fun. Some people have told me it's the most fun they've had in D&D because I allow the new players to do different things that they want to do. Or just, if it seems fun, let them do it, The rule of cool, that kind of thing. But I essentially started there, and then I found that I was developing this world for my homebrew that became Might of the Mountain. It was already Might of the Mountain at that time, but I had like a D&D rule set that was encompassing it. So I'm like, okay, well, I need my own rule set. I'm not going to have D&D take my world, essentially. So then I started to develop my own rule set, and I knew that in my head, I liked games that I could be like almost a god in. Like, you could build cities, you could have things happen where the cities are destroyed, and that's part of the history, or factions would invade and they would affect the world and that. And so I thought that was exciting. And then World of Warcraft uses different different continents, and they can keep adding expansions and add new continents to build their lore up and up and up. And so I thought I can do the same thing. We have Rulnar, which is one continent on one planet, and then we have Kor Virata, which is another continent on another planet. And then for those who have interests, we can then explore those planets even further in future releases. We can sail to the east, sail to the west, sail to the north, and then explore new continents on those planets, or new planets altogether. We've got an endless, field of creation there. So I thought that was really awesome. So that's what made me want to make Might of the Mountain, because another thing was the downtime in D&D. I feel like it's not really heavily played on, and I wanted to experience that. I want to get into the game, have my player pick something up, and hammer it into something. But then in D&D, it's just like, okay, you guys were gone for a week, and now we're going to play this week, so in your downtime, you made a breastplate, and it cost you this much gold. And I just felt like I want to live in that moment. I want to walk into a town, grab my iron ore and everything, and hammer that into a breastplate, and then wear it. You'll feel more connected with the world that way. Could you agree with that with Might of the Mountain? So if like something doesn't work, like, so you're saying like pulling a rule from another game and trying it in your campaign. I guess it's kind of like that. You use base rule sets that are kind of out there, and then you kind of bend it and break it into something that is, it works for your game. It's designed for your game, and it makes sense. Downtime in D&D is like nothing almost. Yeah, I would say so. At least from the games that I played. Other people might run the downtime and actually have you play. I think they've released, there's a lot of content that's being released for 5th edition on Kickstarter, and that is like, there's one that I favorited that is strictly cooking. They released cooking classes. Someone designed cooking classes with cooking downtime stuff and recipes and everything. It's fully illustrated. So and that was extremely successful on Kickstarter. So there's people that want those professions. They want to feel more in tune with the world. They want to feel like their characters can be like Bilbo Baggins, where you can kick your feet up, write a book, smoke a pipe, eat your fill of food with 13 dwarves, whatever amount of dwarves there are in there, and they'll have fun. It's the role-playing session. It doesn't always have to be about combat. He only fights. He doesn't even fight Smaug. He just goes up to Smaug, or Smaug, whatever you want to pronounce it as, and he takes the Arkenstone or whatever it is. All right. So, is that why you made Might of the Mountain a TTRPG? So if a rule doesn't work for a group, there's an option to change it compared to a video game where the rules are set in stone. No, so the reason why I made Might of the Mountain an RPG is because I was already running a website that focused in on tabletop RPGs. At the time, it was called steelborn.com. It was the Steelborn Legion. It was a website devoted to getting people free games for Dungeons & Dragons. I actually started it up on Reddit. It was at the time that recruiting on Reddit was in its infancy, and I used to recruit. I was the sole recruiter for that website, and I had it where I was walking to work. I worked at Mariano's at the time, and I would walk to work really early in the morning, and I would go on Reddit, and I would respond to every response that I'd have. I would post and say, hey guys, I have a website. You can join in. I basically will recruit players for you as a game master, or I will find a game master for you for the time that works for you as a player. If you have a group of players, I'll find your game master. If you are a game master, I'll find your players. And I built a website that did that. And I had, at the height of it, on average, I had about 150 to 200 players playing at any given time. I think the most games we had going on, I think, was 30 or 40 at the time. We also had West Marches running. That was when a lot of people were in. But I had that, and I wanted to do so much more with it. But it was really hard to run as one person. But at that time, I was running Might of the Mountain as like my own game, because I wasn't really running. I ran a couple D&D campaigns on the site as well, but I was doing more of the managerial work on there. I had a group of people that I tried to get in as like recruiters and as officers and whatnot that helped me control the site, but I was really the only one with the full-on passion. You'll actually see him here from time to time, but Big Tex, he actually was one of my main recruiters there. So if you ever have questions, he'll have answers for you about that as well. He can tell you how cool it was. But unfortunately, I had to shut the site down because my game development was suffering because of that. And unfortunately, people didn't appreciate the website for what it was, and it was a lot of stress. I wish that it could have been better. I wish that I could have provided many more free games to people, but there was a lot of people that were mad at me for some reason for providing free games. And then they adjusted Reddit's recruitment policies. I made some bad decisions of moving. Whenever I moved the game, or we moved from TeamSpeak to Discord, I would essentially say that kind of killed the community, because you could, on TeamSpeak, you could see people online at all times and interact with them, but Discord, you can hide away. You don't have to be in a chat channel. Ooh, Might of the Mountain has combat, yes. If so, I have another question for you personally. It does have combat, yes. Combat is a little bit lighter, but yeah. See, if you provide free games, people think it kind of threatens those that make you pay. Yeah, I guess so. But the thing is, like, with tabletop games, I never really thought there was a paid section for that. But I did find out at a later point there are people who you can pay that basically will be a dungeon master for your group. I had an idea from a website that would be like kind of like a membership thing, where if you paid a membership fee, that would help. That would help turn it into almost a business. But if you pay a membership fee, that would be used to then pay premium DMs hourly rates of like $13 or more per hour. And so if we had a certain number of people from the community that were paying a membership fee, then we can afford to hire in or promote DMs to that premium DM membership, and then we would give them an hourly rate to run really highly crafted games for players. And then we would have a thing where we would check on them for their quality, and that we would discuss with them. We would have meetings with them, and we would make sure that the toxicity levels were extremely low. I was fighting to keep toxicity out of tabletop games. So Might of the Mountain is centered around So Might of the Mountain is centered around downtime and building, as far as I know. And what if you have to stop a session in the middle of combat? What then would you do? Didn't want to interrupt you. All good. So you're saying, like, what would happen if you were fighting like a bear, so to speak, and then for some reason you guys had to stop in the middle of fighting a bear? Is that what your question is? Okay. So yeah, I mean, we have, I have in the game, it's called Battle Intuition, which is essentially your what is it called? When you roll a d20, it is your initiative. So in D&D, it's called initiative. In this, it's called Battle Intuition. But you roll your Battle Intuition, and you kind of go through the cycle of things with that. You have a certain number of points to use for different abilities. So like you have 5 battle points or whatever, and you have to use 3 of them to do an attack. Some classes get a reduction in battle points. So like let's say a melee fighter takes like 2 points to swing something, so you can basically attack twice in that. You use 4 points, and then you can use 1 point to like sheath or unsheath a weapon. Someone who shapeshifts has to use all 5 points to shapeshift, and then their next turn would go through. But we try to keep it pretty quick because you only have 5 points to use, so it goes pretty fast instead of you just discussing and saying everything you're going to do. But yeah, I mean, you could stop in the middle of combat if you want. You just have to remember which last person you were left off with in Battle Intuition. And we've had PvP as well, where players have fought each other, and it feels good the way that we have it. It's like a slugfest almost, where you roll back and forth like tenacity rolls against each other, and it's just boom, 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 just constant fighting back and forth because of that 5-point system that we have. So it feels almost like you're really in combat versus D&D, where I feel like it's almost like a video game, right? Where you are like waiting for your turn. You've got 5 or 6 people and you're just waiting. Okay, all right, let's wait a while, and then I'll eventually be able to act. But I haven't really had people complain about the speed of combat in Might of the Mountain just yet. Interesting combat. I'd kind of like to see that in action. Definitely, yeah. I mean, we will see that in action once I finish this playtest guide, and then I can invite you guys in from the Twitch stream to play some games, and you'll be able to break it down. AOA kind of uses D&D combat with the waiting around. Okay. Yeah, I mean, with mine, it still has some waiting around, I believe. I mean, we really haven't gotten too deep into it. Once we introduce spells again, because I took them out, I basically added spells, removed spells, then added spells again, and then removed spells again because they become too complex. We had a mana system, like a magic system, early on. Kind of worked. I don't like the whole recharge time where it's just sleep, and then that's when your recharge happens. So I have to figure out what will make that more so fit within the story of the game, why you have these recharges. Like I was stating in a previous Twitch stream, where like a sword, if you use this ability from a sword, you have to then present it, place it upon a stone and have it regenerate its power by sitting in the sunlight for, several hours or something like that. Different things that would play into that. One main problem I had with D&D, no way to recharge spell slots. Yeah, it's more of like you sleep and then that's when your spell slots happen. I could see it more of like, maybe you perform like a ritual that you have to collect components from like a goblin, like a goblin brain and like a, an orc or something like that. And then you would perform a ritual in an RP session where you can then regain 1 spell slot or something. You shoot 1 spell and you're done for the day. I mean, I'm okay with the whole spell slot system they use for D&D because at later levels you get higher level spell slots and you can use multiple spells. So there's like a lot of spells that you're using, but you burn the spell slots and then you'll have to rest because your knowledge is like your mind is weighted down by the use of all those spells. So I don't have too much of a problem with the way that their spell system is done. I just took the easy, cheap route and made it like potions, like in old school video games. Don't think anyone's ever complained about that kind of thing. So your type of system, they have to carry around potions and like chug a potion real quick to cast a spell. Oh, item that restores it, but they're expensive. Okay, got it. Kind of like your gems. Yeah, the gems that I have in my game, the way that I want the spells to work, for those of you who don't know, is magic in my world is brought about by the destruction of gemstones. So when dwarven miners are mining and a gemstone breaks, or when the earth shifts in that and gemstones are crushed or created, the power that happens from the crush or whatever is what releases magic into the world. So like a person who's not that well crafted in spells would be using gems to like break them or to draw their essence from them, and then they lose their essence, whereas people who are more in tune with spells may use less gemstones, or they already have it innately in their blood or something that they've integrated that. Earlier you mentioned levels for characters. Could you talk a little bit about how it's different from, say, something like D&D? Yes, so in my game, I mean, levels being different than D&D. Well, in D&D, you level from 1 to 20. In my game, you also level 1 to 20, but that's strictly because of the D100 system and the way that I have my points coming in. Each time you level in my game, if you don't know about it, you basically, at the beginning of the game, you get a certain number of skill points. So a player will have skills. Let me see if I can actually pull up a character sheet for you guys so that I can show you an example. So I have an example. This does not have my artwork on it. I will be updating it to have my artwork on it, just so you guys are aware. So in terms of levels, so in my game, you have these points. So you have profession skills and general skills. At the beginning of the game, you get a certain number of points, and you can input those into the different skills here. So like survival instinct, studies of the deep, tenacity, threat, and these all do individual things, and you roll a D100 and you add that point to it. Same thing with profession skills. If you're using carpentry or something like that, you're going to roll that profession skill, so you want to put points into that. All professions start with a -30 at the beginning of the game. When you choose a profession, or when you choose your 2 professions at level 2, you mark those down as zeros. So those become zeros. And then each level you get, I believe it's 10 skill points. And then people who have an increased, an increased expertise will get bonus skill points per level. Those who don't have an increased expertise will still get the 10. And you can put a max of 5 points into any given item as you level up. So these are going to help you with your skill points, and then levels are also going to apply different health points to you. And then I still have to kind of, like, levels in my game are really right now mainly important just for skill points, skill point connections, and then tier difficulties. Or difficulty tiers. Sorry about that. Isn't it like profession levels? No, I think kind of, maybe. I mean, the way that my system is set up right now is, let's see, where we have like harvest list nodes. So it shows level ranges here. So like from level 1 to 5, you should mainly be getting cedar, pine, spruce, and fir. But levels 5 to 10, you get into rare zones where you get hickory, oak, all the way up to walnut. And then when you hit level 10, you can also get, gemfleck weepers or wailing oaks, those types of things. So it's as you level, the zones kind of change, and that's where your resources are going to change as well. Mainly the herbalism nodes are extremely large. Like this is where I have a lot of different things. We have actually herbalism node byproducts as well. So like you can get fat grubs, wriggling worms, moon dust, plant fibers, bubbleberry, glowing spores. You get random gemstone from mining node, byproducts common and rare only from scorian seedlings, those types of things. Like there's a lot of stuff that's in there, but you have to be a certain level range to start to interact with those. So that's what the levels also apply to. Once you reach level 10 or level 20, I forget if I've set it to 10 or 20 now, you'll start to experience legendary quests. So when legendary quests are released after the Kickstarter launches, you'll begin to participate in those. So you want to get up to level 10 and then start participating in those, and you'll start to get like at the ends of those quest lines, there are going to be like more so epic items to get that are going to be thematic to the world. We also have trapping nodes and things like that that are fun. And we have some actual creatures written in here that I'm going to be coming up with. You actually asked about creatures earlier, so we have basic things like squirrel, chipmunk, rabbit, mouse. Then we go to ice fox, skag skitterer, bone slurper. We've got spear tusk boar, broadstone ox, shadow leopard, deep flame lizard. Then we have like Stralnaran striders, glitter pixies. We've got eighth strast, emberflesh. Yeah, bone slurper, exactly. That went 18 plus really fast. Yeah. I mean, hey, whatever you want to think of it as. Deep root dweller, stone-faced spear spider. We've got ghost orb spiders, flame flesh whelpling, flame flesh adolescent, flame flesh adult. We have ghost orb stingers. So like, there's a bunch of random creatures that are in here. Bone slurper, the secondary name to a succubus. Yeah. But hopefully that answers your questions or question in regards to levels. Any others, guys? Guys and gals? Yeah, when's it going to be finished? Okay, so in terms of the development that I have listed, I actually rewrote in my notebook when I believe it's going to be finished. The idea to launch the Kickstarter, I would like to launch it by March 2022. That's going to leave me enough time for the entirety of the development, for the design portion. It's going to leave me time to do all of the artwork for it. And it's going to leave me time to launch the LLC to basically launch it underneath. It's going to be a while. It's going to be early 2022. Maybe 3 if you keep bugging, or if I keep bugging you while you dev it. No, yeah. The idea is to get it done in a little under 2 years, but that will leave me with the best game possible. So that's the idea. Once Might of the Mountain's done, and once that's launched and good to go, and players are able to have a physical copy of the book that has all the artwork that I've done for that, then I will begin producing free games. So these will be small free games that will then hopefully help people think about potentially supporting me through Patreon, because I can provide them with small little games that will be fun for them to just download, have fun with their friends, and then I will have bigger projects that will be kickstarted to hopefully produce physical production of that. I mean, I feel you. I thought AOA was going to be a one-year project. Now I'm looking at the end of 2021 just to leave beta. Yeah, of course. I mean, if I can get it done sooner, I will get it done sooner. It's just a matter of what leaps and bounds we take forward in the development of Might of the Mountain. If I can get ahead of it, if I can finish artwork faster, that's going to save me time. If we remove features from the initial release as well, that's going to save time. But all right, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any more questions going into the chat. If you guys do have any other questions for me after this, you can go ahead and tag me on Twitter. You can message me on Twitter at LevelDead as well, and I will compile those questions and I will answer them for you next Saturday, 9 p.m. Central. I will start scheduling these on my stream. If you look in the About section, or there's like a schedule section down below, somewhere in there, you can click on schedule and it will be listed there. So I'll try to schedule these ahead of time so that way you guys can prepare to swing in if you have time, 9 p.m. Saturdays, or 9 p.m. Central on Saturdays. I'll try to do that. I will be posting to Twitter. I will be posting to Discord whenever I go live on these, and then I will try my best to write up scripts, and maybe I'll start providing those scripts to you guys afterwards if you guys want. If there's any links that are going to be in those, I'll provide those as well. But alrighty, so thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for following. Of course, thank you for joining the Dead. Thank you for coming to the first ever podcast of DevForge, and thank you those of you who participated in the poll. I really appreciate all of you guys being here, all of you guys asking the questions. Best of luck forging your paths in game development. Have a good night.